God is the master creator. He is and always will be. We are his creation and his joy. He is working with mankind to build and refine us for use in his coming kingdom. Let us not forget the good news of the coming kingdom. Our hope as Christ believers rests on this good news. We need to profess this to all who will hear. As our Father has told us in his word, that he is in charge and is creating us. So how does that look in our lives? We being the submissive creation to our Father, guiding us to refine us to be in all ways more like him. I've always looked for the most simplistic way of understanding our Father's words. It does say in our Bible that God's plan for us is so simple that even a child can understand. So let's take a look at something from a very simple point of reference. God created us along with all that you see in the world. We, humans, are creators as well. We have the resources and knowledge of this earth to be creators as well. Not ever being gods ourselves, we as God's people can create things from the resources of this earth. As you can see this all around you. This is one way to look at this. God, when he created everything, he used his word, his breath. Pretty awesome to say the least. These are some of God's tools he uses to create. We, as his creation, don't get that ability. But as God is refining us, his creation, he uses his people as tools in this process. We also have been gifted with a toolbox. Not quite the same tools our Maker has, but all the same, he has gifted us with the tools we need to create things ourselves. Box, anyway, that I use every day at my job. It's a very big set of tools by most standards. I need them every day to create. This tool set has some interesting parallels. One of the things I find in my toolbox is this one ratchet that I call Old Faithful. This tool is a must every day. If I can't find it, I freak out. I can also use one of the other 10 ratchets that I have to get through the job, but it's just not the same. It's not as effective. When I use this tool, I always know how much I can stress it out. I know where it will be the most useful, and it's also the most versatile. Then there are other tools that I have. I have to have them, but I use them infrequently. They are considered special tools, and usually only have one purpose. Then there are tools that I have like this end wrench. One time I cut and bent this wrench to reach one bolt on a particular engine. This wrench before that used to be kind of universal, but not anymore. It's only good for one thing. Now, I haven't had a use for it in over 15 years, but I will not get rid of it. I never know when I can use it in the future. Besides, I don't get rid of any of my tools because of the cost of the investment. I have way too much invested over time just to throw anything away. This is how God works. He has this enormous toolbox, and we are the tools in that box. He will never just throw us away. Even though he can use us very rarely, we still sit in his toolbox right next to some of the most important use and most valuable tools he has. Now, in my toolbox, I don't organize my tools as to what's more useful. I put them in such a way that as they are. Screwdrivers go with screwdrivers in the same drawer. All the wrenches, no matter how useful, they go in the same place. God does this too. He has a plan. He has a goal. He uses us where he can to complete what pleases him. Now, to continue with this analogy, what kind of tool are you? Ask yourself, am I useful in more than one way? Can God rely on me to be the most flexible and most useful tool in his box? Or am I just bent up enough to be used only for one thing? After all, you are in his toolbox. This alone is a blessing in itself. Just to be important enough to be put in his collection, that does make you a lot more valuable than most. There's a lot of ways to look at this analogy. Like my special tools that only do one thing. If I didn't have it, I couldn't get past that one step to begin with. I have to have them. That is why they're called special. they only do one thing, but they are extremely powerful in that use. Even if we are only good for one thing, make sure that one thing you can do for our Father, you do well, with all the power that He gave you. There's another tool story for you. God has given His people a tool shed. You know, like the one in your backyard. We keep our lawnmowers, pruning shears, rakes, and so on. This tool shed is likened to our emotions, feelings, and responses to everything around us. God has given us to us free, a very valuable set of tools with this idea. If, for instance, one day our spouse or a woman of the house asks if we could trim the rose bushes out front of the house. So we have a tool shed and a good selection of tools, but maybe we don't use them, or maybe we don't even know we have so many. Now I go into my tool shed, I bring out the wood splitting maul, and I start hacking away at the rose bush. Then I go to the spouse and say, "Look what I did." She looks at it, at the destruction, and starts crying and runs back in the house. This is a crude story. The splitting maul that you drug out of the shed is anger. You could have used a small set of pruning shears or hand grass clippers that you had been in your tool shed as well. Then the rose bushes you were asked to tend to wouldn't have been more carefully trimmed, and you would have received a more positive response. This is how some people react. Like I said, maybe we don't want to use the right tool for the right job, or don't know we even have so many different tools. Or maybe there has been an example set in our lives that make us think that this is the only tool we have, or the only one that is effective. If you and I are truly God's children, then you should come to realize that our Maker has equipped us with the same emotional tool shed as everyone else. That it is us that need to learn how to properly use these tools that we are blessed with, and using them in a way that pleasing to our Father, our brothers and sisters, and that work diligently for the kingdom that is coming.